Welcome to What's New in Electronics 2018 at the NEC in Birmingham. I'm joined by Andy Bonner and Richard Booth to talk about a little subject, maybe not very well known subject, of Brexit. Thanks for being brave enough to step up to the mark with this. It's a huge issue, and we probably should step away from trying to argue the whys and wherefores about it, but something's going to happen. Nobody seems to have a clue what is going to happen. I guess at the moment the best thing we can hope for is to be able to have a vote on a disastrous no deal Brexit or a disastrous deal Brexit. But you know, how does it affect the electronics industry? How does it affect my concern? You know, the big internationals, they can cope with more paperwork. They can cope with having to have more people to manage things. They can cope with maybe moving some production to different places. But small electronics companies that just employ a handful of people, for whom cash flow is the bottom line, what do you think they should be doing?
Yeah, hi there. Yeah, I think we're all sitting here as the common man, the unknowing common man, not knowing all the answers, or many of the answers, maybe not even many of the questions.
Yeah.
What I know as a small business owner is that it is going to affect a business, and we need to try and make sure that it affects it in a positive way. It seems to me there's so many opinions, which is confusing. It seems to me that the politicians can't be trusted too well with their opinions. They're not experts either, by the way. They're on new ground as well. And I think sorting out facts from fiction, from fake news, from scaremongering is really difficult. So I'm partly wanting to understand and listen and ask the questions, challenge the points. I'm sure it's going to affect our business. We just don't know in which way quite just yet.
Yeah. Do you think a business is going to have to adapt quickly, or do you think we'll be given a little bit of time to do it? And can you afford that time to do it?
Yeah. I think we need to adapt quickly, to be honest, because I think it's already happening, and probably because it's iterative and slow, we may not realise it's happening until we look behind and say, wow, you know, we already had a 20% fall in the pound, which should have made us more effective, whether it did or not, more competitive. So there's already been a big change that nobody's really talked about.
That's it, yeah, it's having an effect already. I mean, actually, Andy, you were saying that you sell in dollars, don't you? So,
selling in dollars, you get more money for your sales these days, but obviously fewer sales because people that are buying them can't afford so much because they're buying in pounds, effectively. So there kind of swings and roundabouts there, but we import and export from USA, Europe, South Africa, Middle East, all around, so we're reasonably used to doing the paperwork for things outside of Europe, but whatever happens, it looks like we're going to have more paperwork to do. So there's always a little bit more to get sorted out and get done, but I mean, it's probably nothing to fear from that point of view. I think what would worry me more is if the bigger companies that we're selling to in the UK up sticks and left. Yeah, because then the market just went, and the only place then we'd have to sell is wherever they went to, be it Europe or wherever else is they go to, which is going to make things a lot more difficult, and increase costs, increase sales, increase everything.
Yeah. In some ways, do you think it may even cancel things out? Because if you're manufacturing here to export, you're probably bringing in components and elements of what you produce from Europe, so you end up chasing your tail around a series of tariffs.
You mean from a bigger company point of view, from the bigger manufacturers? Yeah, I suppose. I mean, but mostly, I guess, from components, they come in from overseas anyway at the moment, so they're already coming in from not Europe probably, but I mean, I guess things like car manufacturers bring things in from Europe all the time, and if that whole chain gets slower and more expensive for them, they're much less likely to stay, I would have thought. I mean, I can't answer for what Nissan or somebody's going to do, but who knows at the moment? Absolutely, really is. That's the trouble. Who knows?
And everything is heading more and more towards a just-in-time scenario with everything, whether it's delivery or whatever. And I mean, we were talking yesterday with the CFX system with the live demo line here. that's almost enabling a just-in-time decision-making, which is fantastic when you've got a massive amount of data, which we don't have for Brexit. We have a, like you say, there's a lot of sort of supposition there. And I guess it comes down to there's two issues, aren't there? There's the physical issue of people being worried that stuff will be held up coming into the country or going out of the country. Does that slow your supply chain down? Does that put cost into your supply chain? How do you manage that? Who takes the hit for that cost? Then there's the psychological side of it, of when, you know, business thrives on stability and security. Take out stability, we don't know what's happening, then businesses, will they stop sourcing equipment product from the UK? Not because there's any need to, but because there's a fear they'll look elsewhere. How do we then attract them back, maybe?
Yeah, I think we need to worry about sort of retaining the companies that we've got, especially the overseas companies. I mean, there's quite a lot of emotion in the selection of where you subcontract, where you build factories. I mean, we can remember in the 80s and 90s, the American companies built the factories in Ireland and Scotland. It was kind of language, it was kind of tax incentives, but it was emotion as well. It was an American Irishman saying, I've got relatives in Ireland, or I've got connections, I feel emotions with Ireland. And I mean, that can happen. That kind of be a worry for me. The automotive industry is obviously very big in the UK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Automotive is Germany, largely, Germany and France. Yeah. They're our two biggest protagonists in Europe. And if they get upset, and big bosses get upset about these things, which they may do, they may decide to put plants elsewhere. I mean, there is one big automotive company that's building a plant in Poland that's mirroring the production of one or two other plants that they've got in the UK already. Yeah. They're cutting ground for that. So this is the kind of thing that I mean about you look behind you after a while and you realise a lot's happened, but on the day you don't see that. You know? Yeah,
true. I mean, there's another issue there, isn't there? That Europe countries, they're always in a fluid state of, within Europe especially. I mean, Poland is a good case where the standard of living is rising. Mm-hmm. You know, the zloty to the pound is much less of incentive to come here, and you can't send as much money home, or you can't, you know, save as much money. Employee point, so it's probably inevitable that some companies will look to, okay, we're going to build there now. We're going to put plants in, you know, Slovakia, and there's a whole range of countries there. So that can be part of that, but the Brexit issue hanging over us, I guess, is one of these things that will maybe push people's hands towards doing that.
The UK is not really a low-cost manufacturing country, is it?
Not anymore.
No. And I know that Mrs May is supposed to be announcing a cut in corporation tax or something while she's in the USA, isn't she? Whether that will attract people or not, I really don't know. No. It's another unknown. No. And I'm sure she's doing that for a very good reason to try and retain businesses here, but it just depends whether or not that works.
Yeah. Do you think the politicians understand business and
who? Sorry,
the politicians?
Who are they? Yes.
No, they don't. But you know, there is this issue, isn't there, that the people making a lot of the decisions don't have any experience of running these kind of businesses, or even seem to spend the time to want to engage with and talk to people.
They're well intentioned, aren't they? But they're not very experienced, some of them. And I think if you listen to the business community, the general business community is concerned. I think the manufacturing business community is even more concerned, since manufacturing's never been kind of very high on politicians' attentions. I don't know if we're around 15% of GDP as manufacturing. That's kind of small compared to the other things that are going on.
Well, compared to what it was like 40 years ago, when I started in the electronics business, it's just a completely different world in this country now. We used to have lots of semiconductor manufacturers, we had lots of, a huge amount of electronics industry in this country, but for all good reasons it's changed, gone elsewhere, gone to Far East, and I think we need to, if we're going to get anywhere, we need to build what's here. You know,
Yes,
find
yeah.
some way to actually get more manufacturing here, more production here, more design, more development, more things in this country.
We can grow our own factories,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
we still need foreign factory
We do,
investment.
yeah.
still.
But I don't think that's anything to do with Brexit. We should have done it anyway.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
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 true,
yes.
yeah,
It's completely
yeah.
irrelevant to,
Yeah.
to the whole Brexit thing.
I mean, that is globalisation, isn't it? You know, you should be, and you have a large plant built here side by automotive manufacturer, say, then there's a huge set of satellite
Yes.
businesses, small businesses that
Absolutely,
feed into
yeah.
that grow up and make it healthy.
Mm.
You pull them out, then there's problems, aren't there?
Yes.
But we've still got to, if we don't remain attractive to those kind of businesses, we've got problems, haven't
Yes,
we?
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. Probably we need more investment in new equipment.
Yeah.
We've a small operation in Romania, and all the factories in Romania, they're mainly German factories.
Right.
Brand new equipment, modern. Everything is 2, 3, 4 years old, so they've got the best of the equipment. They've got the cheapest of good quality labour, so they are very competitive.
And land is cheap there as well. Yeah,
Indeed,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
the costs are minute compared
Yes,
to.
yeah.
Yeah, and
somewhere.
it's that investment that affects our productivity here as well, isn't it?
Yes.
You know, we're supposedly, I don't know the figures and things, but one of the lower productivity countries in Europe.
Yes.
And is that due to lack of investment in new equipment and new factories and everything else, which are going into other countries? Yes, investment, good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is the test for any government to ensure that we remain attractive in some way. I mean, at the moment, it just does seem a sort of nightmarish jungle of not being able to move anywhere. But you would have thought that there would be some working parties set up, and task forces to deal with.
A plan.
Yeah, maybe I'll send them a letter actually and see if they can have a think about it. But you would have thought that there would be,
Yes.
because we've got so many. You know, electronics manufacturing is totally different to other kinds of manufacturing. We've got all sorts in the UK, and it's everyone has different needs and different pressures. And I guess again, that is my concern for the small business that is, you know, a handful of employees. How do they, where cash flow dictates success or failure? You know, a lot of people, you know, on individual level are only sort of 2 pay packets away from being completely skint, or you know, maybe 1 in my case.
That's jolly.
Yeah. But you know, businesses can be destroyed by, not because they haven't got enough orders, but because the cash isn't, you know, it's not flowing at the right time.
It'd be nice to see initiatives. I mean, again, the Germans are very good at that, aren't they? They had problems with their cars, so they offered scrappage schemes. You know, they were the first to do that. They've got a problem with diesel cars, so now they're offering some scrappage schemes. It would be nice to see some initiatives like that. You know, I think if manufacturing was more important to people at the top, then you'd see that.
Yeah. And I mean, we laughed earlier on, but we're probably not in a situation where the banks are going to step up and help businesses, particularly.
But that sort of long-term investment hasn't happened for 70s, 80s.
Yes,
You know, it's been dropping off. The banks don't invest in the longer term. The government sees things in 4 or 5 year chunks because that's what they're going to do. Don't see it like, I think the Germans probably do more with their own, you know, privately owned industries. They see this as a lifetime thing. This investment is now for something that's going to happen in 20 years, not a return tomorrow. And if we saw more of that, I think you'd see more industry in this country and more people starting up their own businesses.
Yeah, exactly. But what you take away from a show like this is that it is quite a vibrant sector, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you've got people that have been in it all their lives and run a business for decades, and you've got a lot of startups and new businesses coming along which, you know, integrates with all of that. And we need to promote that and push it, don't we? across the globe?
Well, I mean, we must be attractive, you know. There's a lot of people from Eastern Europe that are coming here to work, good engineers, good quality engineers. So they see something in it as well, you know. We've just got to provide these sort of infrastructures, mechanical infrastructures.
And, you know, what heartened me yesterday is that places like the Manufacturing Technology Centre, you know, we've got places that are really getting at ground level and pushing that for a new generations coming through of engineers and, like I say, that keeping that brilliance in the UK. So
getting younger people involved. I mean, we're not our first flush of youth, I guess. But you know, it needs younger people coming into the business.
Exactly. Yeah.
But people of our age were drawn into the business because it was vibrant.
Exactly.
in the 70s and 80s.
When it was the
and
sunrise industries.
Yeah. That's why we're all roughly about this age.
Seeing another set of change come along. But
MTC are doing well with their apprenticeship schemes, and
Yes.
these are important.
Yeah.
You know, back to basics type thing.
yeah, if we've got the skills, then fingers crossed. There's businesses that will need them and still want to come along and make it a success. And there's no reason it can't be, can it? It's just that we've got to get through that fog of uncertainty at the moment and get on with the reality of it.
Make all these things attractive again. And
Yes.
So it used to be a really attractive industry. Manufacturing used to be attractive. Need to get that back again somehow.
Yeah, find the things we're good at and really push them. Well, thanks for being brave enough to step up and actually talk about this. The number of
I'm
people.
not sure we actually mentioned Brexit there, did we?
Thank goodness.
No.
The number of people we went to and just actually ran away when we said it was quite impressive.
Right.
But I mean, next year we can talk again. We'll
Yes.
see some
And we'll
more,
know, won't we?
Yeah, exactly. So, well, thank you for your time, guys, and see you back here next year, hopefully.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.